Assalamu alaikum. This is a continuation of our lecture on exceptions. So, um, we we stopped at our else keyword, and we were looking at a problem in our last class when we ended our last video, where we are handling all type of exceptions using the exception block. In this block, we were handling all types of exceptions, and we were trying to find a way to handle exceptions errors differently. So, for example, if there was a division by zero division error, we would like to print that cannot divide by zero. And if there was an error where user was supposed to give an integer but gave gave a string or word or sentence or something like that. So when that happened, we wanted to, then that would have given a value error. So we wanted to handle value error differently by saying that please enter an integer, or you did not enter an integer, or something like that. So how could we do that? Let us look at some of the major types of error. So index error. Index error is when an index sequence is out of range. So when suppose we have a list, and in our list, suppose the length of our list is say 7. The length of our list is 7, and we are trying to access the 11th element or index, or 11 number index of the list. So our list, which is of length 5, does not have an index of 11, or let's say minus something, minus 9, or minus 10. So our in list of size, our list of size 7, or length 7, does not have an index of minus 10 or positive 11 or something like that. So when that happens, it gives us an index error. Then we could have a name error when a variable is not found in the local or global scope. We saw this when we were learning variable scoping and functions. So if the variable is not found in local or global scope, it gives name error. Indentation error is something very common, which all of us have faced many times in Python, because in Python the scope, the if-else scope, or even here the try except scope, the scope of the try except blocks are defined by indentation. So when there is an incorrect indentation, it gives us an indentation error in Python. Then zero division error. We saw zero division error in our last video. Type error, when we want to apply an operation of one data type into an object of another data type, then gives us a type error. And runtime error are all other errors except the types that we have mentioned here. So let us look at how we can handle multiple exceptions. As we saw in our last, when we ended our last class, we wanted to handle multiple exceptions differently. So let's say we want to take both numbers from the user. So let's say we want to take B also as an input from an user. So we are taking A as input from the user. We are also taking B as input from the user. Let's say another integer. Just makes it look nicer. So let's say, let's remove this start, and we do not need start. Let's just say my program ends. So I have print C, except. Now I want to handle each exception differently. So let's say exception except, let's say except if I have a zero division error, so if the zero division error occurs, I want to print cannot divide by 0. I want to print this. If value error occurs, so let me write this, except if value error occurs, let's say I want to say to the user that you have not entered an integer, and if the error is not one of these two types, and then let me say that other exception. and no exception. If you want, we can print this is the same. Let's just remove this for simplicity for now. So this is our code. We are taking two inputs from the user, and we are trying to divide it and print it. And if we are handling each error differently, so zero division error. So if the input are not integers for this slide, so let us look at this slide. So we are saying that if the input are not integers, so the input is x, please input an integer. So if I run this, please enter an integer. So let me say that I have not given integer, I have given someone's name, let's say Bob. So my program is trying to cast Bob into an integer. It's trying to cast Bob into an integer, but Bob cannot be cast into an integer since it is a word or a string. So it cannot be cast into an integer. We do not have any number here. So it gives us an error. What kind of error? Value error. The value error is being caught here. So this is not a zero division error. So as same as if else statement, we check each in turn. So this is not a zero division error. Then we go to the next one. Since this is a value error, the error is caught here, and we print you have not entered an integer. You have not an integer, and the finally block is executed regardless of whether there is an exception or not. I haven't. So I hope this is clear. Then moving on. For example, what if we give 0 as input? So let's run this. Let's say I've given 7, and another number I have given 0. So my A is 7 and B is 0. So I'm trying to do 7 by 0. I'm trying to divide by 0. So this gives us a zero division error. So the zero division error is caught here, and I have printed cannot divide by 0. So cannot divide by 0 is printed, and the finally block is executed, and end is printed. So I've handled each error differently. So I've handled each error differently. Now, if there is any other type of error, it is caught in exception, and I have print other exception. So if we move it to first, let's say I have put it here. Sorry about that. Let's say I have it here. Let's say I have it here. So as we know, this except exception catches all exceptions. So whether it is a zero division error, whether it is a value error, except exception block catches all type of errors. So if we put this first, as I said before, these are like if else statements. So each are checked in turn. So when zero division error was first, it was first, my code first checks for zero division error, then it checked for value error, then it checked for any other type of exception. But as we know, the except exception block catches all other type of exceptions. So now what happens now if I run this, so if I do not enter integer, let's say I entered bux, then it says other exception. So as I said, no matter what I do here, so if I run this and let's say I have given 0, 10, and I have given 0, I am trying to divide by 0. So when I'm trying to divide by 0, it is giving, it is saying that other exception. When I'm not giving an integer, it is giving other exception. Why? As I said, these are like if else statements. So if I write except exception at first, so this will be first check. So this is the if statement per se. So this will be checked for first. So any exception will be caught here. So any exception will be caught here. So if we want to use this, we will always have to write it. We will always have to write it at last. So we will always have to write it here, because exception catches all types of exceptions. So if we put it first, no matter what exception occurs in my code, it will always print what I am printing inside this except exception block. So when we want to use this, we will always have to make sure that we write it at last. Raising exception, we can also use custom exception. We can raise exception. So let's say that if I am handling the zero division error separately, let's say exception. So let me say I want to print this outside. No need any finally block. So let's say c equals to a by b, and I'm trying to print c here. And the 0 division by 0, I want to handle it separately. So if now if I run this, so let's say I'm trying to divide by 0, what happens? Let's see this first. So let me say this is 11, and I'm trying to divide by 0. What happens? It gives 0 division error in line number 8, 0 division error, division by 0. So the message it shows, remember this, this is important. The message it is showing is 0 division error has occurred, and the message it is showing is division by 0, division by 0. Now if I want to handle it separately, let's say if b equal 0, let's say I want to say b equals to 0. I want to raise 0 division error, and I want to print that second input cannot be 0. Cannot be 0. So when 0 division occurs, when my b is 0, so I'm trying to divide by 0. So if b is 0, I want to raise 0 division error and want to print that second input cannot be 0. Now if I run this, let's say 7, 0. So I have 0 division error. So it's the same as before. 0 division error is being raised 0 division error in this line, but my message that is being shown is changed. So in previously the message showed division by 0. Now it says second input cannot be 0. So if I write here, let's say b cannot be 0. Now the message that it will show is b cannot be 0. So 10, 0. Now the message it shows is b cannot be 0. So we can raise errors in this way. We can also define custom exceptions, which we will look at in our future courses. We can also define custom exceptions in Python. We will look at that in future in our future courses. That is not in this that is outside the scope of this course. We can also look at the exception hierarchy. This is also one of the topics that will be discussed in future courses. In when we will learn inheritance in CSC 111, we will have a better understanding of the exception hierarchy. And here is a practice problem. For your practice, take 4 integers and try to handle exceptions. Take 4 integers and into a list and check whether the list is a palindrome or not, and handle index errors, value errors, and type errors. You might want to try this out. So that is all about exceptions in this in CSE 110 course. I hope you were able to understand this. Have a good day. Best of luck. Assalamu alaikum.